Hey everybody, Brent Florica here, and welcome back to Sketchbook B. In this episode, I'm going to be going through a design process for a fun little piece that I did for my daughter's birthday. She turned 2, and since I did a little robo animal concept for each of the older 2 siblings, I decided I'm going to do one for my other 2 kids as well. So this one is going to be a ROBOPIG cowgirl piece. And I'm really excited with how this one turned out. I decided to just keep it simple. I did it with my digital tablet, so I don't have as much confidence with that as with my typical traditional supplies. So I thought best to maybe just keep it simple, use more shape language as opposed to detail, and see how it turns out. And I was really happy with the end result, so I hope you are too. I'm going to take you through step by step each part of the process and do a little bit of explanation into my thoughts and what I was kind of considering as I was going through this design process. So I hope it's of benefit to you and you enjoy it, and if you do, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel and help it grow. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks a lot, and yeah, let's get into it. So as I begin this drawing, I start with just kind of the rough outline of the animal that I'm basing the drawing off of, whether it's a shark or a unicorn, or in this case, a pig. All of these drawings so far have been based on kind of animals that my kids have really been into at the time. So my little girl has a little pig that she sleeps with that she loves. So that was kind of the root inspiration for this one. And I'm using my just rough pencil in Sketchbook Pro, and starting with that rough pig, I then build over it with all of these little details and come up with something that I think is going to work pretty well. And then I can start messing around with adding my daughter to the top here. And it's funny, doing this really teaches you a lot about the difference between more adult proportions and child proportions, because I found myself going over this again and again and just realizing that, yeah, her torso is a little more squat and her head doesn't sit as high, her neck isn't as long when, little kids don't have super long necks. So, I found myself messing around with that a lot, and it was really fun, and I ended up with kind of this result here. Once the rough stuff was done, I was able to move on then to the inking, and this is always a fun stage where things really start to take shape. And after I kind of played around with different brushes for a while and figured out which one I wanted to use, I could go around and start cleaning it up a little bit, and choosing which lines to keep and which lines to kind of leave, and just refining it a little bit and making everything a little more smooth and stuff. I've taken a lot of inspiration from Darren Calvert's drawings. He's an amazing artist that I've found on Instagram, does a lot of stuff with Copic markers, and is very polished and clean in the way he works and stuff. So his stuff that he's doing right now for March of Robots is just amazing, so go and check him out for sure. His stuff is just, really inspiring for me, so I was kind of using some of his stuff as inspiration style-wise when doing this one. And then, I was just going in and doing some of the detailing on the face here, and trying to, keep everything nice and smooth and not too many extra unnecessary lines if I could help it. This was a lot of fun to do. Sometimes doing something digitally for me is intimidating because I'm just not super comfortable with it yet, but I don't know, there's just something about this process that is fun when you can move stuff around and you're not kind of bound by the traditional media where you have to, erase it and redraw. You can shift things around when you're working digitally and readjust as you need, and there's something kind of liberating about that. And so, I'm sure I'll get more comfortable with it and be able to do more as time goes on, but for now I'm just kind of enjoying the journey and experimenting, bit by bit. And so this was a lot of fun just to come up with this little vehicle / character here, and I'm hoping you're enjoying it as well. Adding some detailing where appropriate. didn't want to go too crazy with it and make it kind of a mess. I wanted the colors to be nice and simple and the shape to be really the dominant thing that jumps out at the at the viewer when looking at this. So yeah, I was definitely going for a more simple approach. I had trouble with this leg a lot, a lot of trouble, because something about it just didn't seem right, the angle of it or something, so I ended up just erasing it and trying again. And I went back to my roughs just to kind of redo it and see where it would actually sit, and eventually I was able to come up with something that I was a lot more happy with. This basically brings us to the end of the inking phase, and everything was ready for colors. So here's where we ended up. This next phase is called flatting or color flatting, and basically I just created a new layer and set it to multiply so that the colors would show underneath the line work. And just started going in and filling all the line work with color, and then I just kind of started with filling the whole shape with one color, and then I would go in afterwards and start filling in the other shapes bit by bit. And this is for a reason, so that because if I was trying to go and fill in individual areas with color without filling the whole thing solid first, I might run into a situation where there's some blank pixels left in between, like under the line work, and sometimes that can create problems when you're printing it, and if stuff isn't exactly lined up, then you could have blank white space showing through. And so I was trying to avoid that, because I definitely wanted to print this one out hard copy to make use it as a birthday card for my little girl. So I wanted to make sure that I had everything filled in solid behind. And then this is just, I enjoy this stage because for me, you can do this a number of ways, and some people when they're flatting, they just block it out and it doesn't matter what colors they use. They use all sorts of random ones because the colorist or whatever will go back in, and in a comic book situation, the colorist will come in afterwards and they'll decide what colors they want to use, and they can move things and shift things and whatever. But I like to use this stage to make some decisions about the coloring and just get a general sense of my color scheme and how everything's working together and what it looks like. And I had some fun with this one. Generally I wanted to go with a sort of pink color, but I had some fun with those front legs, doing them darker. It kind of was thinking of a C-3PO sort of situation from the new trilogy, or from the new movie, where he shows up with the red arm, and it's kind of like, okay. But I wanted to kind of mess around with that as if this creature, this vehicle, was sort of pieced together from a bunch of random junk. The next stage was to create a new layer, again set to multiply, and I used a very light sort of purpley color that I then went in and started putting my shadows in with. And again, like I said, I wanted this to be clean, and I was kind of going back and forth and warring with myself a little bit over this, because I was at first trying to do like really smooth blending and stuff, and something about it, I just wasn't really happy with the way that was going. And this piece is more cartoony anyway with the line work and stuff, so it didn't seem like a very good fit. And I decided to kind of backtrack and go back in afterwards with more of a cell shaded look, where the lines between the shaded areas and the non-shaded areas is just a very solid, crisp line. And I was ultimately a lot more happy with that, and I think it just kind of suited the style of this piece a little bit better. I began by doing just sort of a base layer on this multiply layer of shadows, and just kind of one pass, and laid out sort of the darkest areas of, the second darkest areas of shadow, where they would be. And then I went in afterwards and did a second pass in the areas where there would be like the deepest shadows. So I created kind of multiple levels of shadow, and then that way, I'm trying to create the sense of depth without going too hardcore into realism. I think that kind of worked out pretty well for kind of the style that I was going for. Once I finished up with the RoboPig itself, I was able to then go in and start adding all of the little shadow bits on the figure here, and finishing that up. Even though this is kind of a Western, my daughter loves wearing my hats and she's always stealing them, so I thought it would be kind of funny to give her a baseball cap instead of the traditional cowboy hat. It's always a challenge trying to determine where the shadows will fall and where your light source is and all of that, and this one gave me some trouble, but ultimately I was pretty happy with how it turned out. I have a lot to learn in terms of light and shadow, and more practice required, but I had a lot of fun with this, and now you can see me layering in that darker layer of shadow in the areas that would be farthest away from the light source. With the shadows in, it looks okay, but it's not quite complete, so I started messing around then with some highlight layers. I created an overlay layer. I set the layer mode to overlay, and that way it just kind of went over top, but still didn't go over the line work. And that way I could kind of lay in just the sort of areas of general light, and then I did the same thing with the light that I did with the shadows, where I did 2 passes. So one that was just kind of a general light, and then a second pass that ended up being more of like the brightest areas. And once you kind of add the highlights as well as the shadows, then it really starts to pop. And I had fun with kind of the windshield and the sunglasses or the visor or whatever, making those kind of shine and stuff like that. That was a lot of fun. So yeah, this was just a really fun piece to do. And once the character itself was finished up, and kind of the final shadow and lighting and stuff was put on the little plants and rocks and things on the ground, I finished off the piece then by going through and adding in the ground. And I wanted to kind of do a little not a full background for this one, but just kind of having it floating on a little island of dirt and stuff like that, just so that I don't have to do anything too extensive with the background, because I wanted to leave my options open as well for what to do with this, and maybe make a sticker out of it or something and have some fun with it on my art shop. So I wanted to keep my options open. After I added in my shadow for the RoboPig onto the ground there, the final step was just to add in the track marks, the tire marks in the ground, and also some hoof prints from the front legs, just to again add that little bit of believability to it, that it's heavy, it would be sinking into the ground, it wouldn't just float on top. Just makes it a little bit more believable. Thanks so much for joining me at Sketchbook B. Please like, subscribe, comment, share, all of those good things. I hope you enjoyed the piece. I had a lot of fun with it, and feel free to check out all of my social medias and my online art store over here. Thanks a lot. See you next time.